Well, thank you everyone for joining the meeting today. I'm Rob Kaiser. I'm the publisher of Greater Wilmington Business Journal, and we're excited about this new program that we're bringing to our community. I'm going to give some quick background, and then we have Peter Burke with us today. He's the CEO and founder of Workforce Research Group. He runs similar programs around the country, so we wanted to invite him to be able to explain to everybody who's interested in this program how it works. So we have looked at best places to work programs all over the country. There's a lot of other business journals that have done these programs for a long time, and there's really two big benefits for companies in the community. One, it's the recognition. If your organization is selected as a best place to work, obviously that's something that helps in recruitment, in team spirit, in just being recognized for the culture that you've created. And then two, it's information. So Peter runs a professional research group and is going to collect a lot of data about the company from your employees, and that's information at the end of the process that you're able to have. Obviously that's all private information for you, and it's anonymous. It's not, when employees fill out surveys, the employers don't see individual surveys that are filled out, but you can see how people are feeling and be able to look at programs and ways to improve. So I'm going to hand it off to Peter to talk about the process and the benefits of the program. And then I'll come back on, and Jamie Merrill, our events director, is on here too. We'll talk about, there's an event component to this. We will, as a part of our Spark ILM program on October 1st, we're going to have a best places to work in Wilmington celebration at the end of this process on October 1st. But the main point of this call is really for you all to hear from Peter about how this program works. As you have questions, please put them in the chat, and we'll get to as many questions as we can as well. So Peter, I'll hand it off to you.
Okay, Rob, thank you very much. I'm going to apologize a little bit in advance. Late yesterday afternoon, my voice left me. So I've been guzzling down throat lozenges and hot tea and vitamin C. And so if I sound a little scratchy, I apologize for that. But I'm really glad we got a chance to talk to all of you today. And thank you so much for joining. It looks like a good group of people to come here. As Rob mentioned, I run Workforce Research Group. We are a workplace excellence research firm. We help publications like Wilmington Biz all over the country and internationally. We help them with their best places to work programs in terms of identifying who makes those lists. The beauty of this is that we are a third party kind of workplace excellence research firm who is doing this. So it kind of removes that job and research out of the hands of perhaps the publishing and media partners and puts it in the hands of a third party expert. So we feel like the lists we do are credible and exciting, actually. So we're glad you're here. So today I want to go over a couple things. I'll do a little bit on the process itself. We'll talk a little bit more about the benefits. But our job, straight up, is that we manage the registration process. We survey the companies. We do an employer survey and an employee survey. And I'll talk about that in a minute. We determine who makes that list. We turn that list over to Rob and his team. And then from there, they're responsible for all of the recognition and publishing the list and having the events as well. One of the other things we also do is that from all that information, we're able to create a pretty substantial data dashboard, employee feedback data dashboard, which I'll talk about in a little bit as well. But that's our job. We walk you through that whole process. We have a team of researchers and program coordinators who will hold your hand. But so let's talk a little bit about the process. And I thought the best way to do that would be to head over to the website. And I will, let's see here, share the screen. Let me see, share the window. Is that visible now? Rob,
Yep.
Can you see that? Okay. This is the Best Places to Work Wilmington.com website. This is where you will find answers to most, if not all, of your questions. But I'm glad you're here today because we can get them answered for you pretty quickly for here. But as you'll see here, this is the big one up top. This is where you go to register. This is a free program. You are not paying anything to participate. You can go through the whole process, find out whether you make the list or not, enjoy the recognition if you get it, and be done. Now, hopefully, you will be interested in your employee engagement data, and that's where there's a small fee that comes into play. But I want to talk about the process itself. We'll first talk about the eligibility, which is under who can participate. This is for the greater Wilmington area. So if you see here, you need to have 15 full or part-time employees working in the Wilmington, North Carolina region, which includes New Hanover, Brunswick, and Pender counties. You don't have to be headquartered there. You just need to have a physical operation from there. You can be publicly held, privately held. You can be for-profit, not-for-profit. And again, you don't have to be headquartered there. So if you're an employer with 15 or more employees working in that region, you're eligible to participate. So you go to this website and you register. Registration takes 5 to 10 minutes. You're giving us primary contact information, secondary contact information. You're telling us how many employees you have and just some basic information so that we can communicate with you once the whole survey process starts. I'll go over the sort of the more in detailed timeline, but the registration deadline is April 10th. You see this right over here. That registration deadline shouldn't be confused when all the completion of all the work. That's just raising your hand, you're filling out some forms and saying, yes, I want to do this. After that registration deadline is when we start the survey process. Part 1 of that process is the employer assessment. We're asking about benefits. We're asking about the cool things you do for your employees. We're asking about things you do for fun and leadership programs. We're going to ask you for photos and logos, and we're going to ask you for descriptions of why you're a great place to work. It should theoretically take about 45 minutes to an hour to complete. Usually that's our primary contact, which might be the head of HR or the head of the marketing department, or if you're a smaller organization, might be a business manager or someone who knows about the HR, the benefits, things like that. So that'll be in the field for about 2 weeks. And then after that, we will conduct an employee survey. And we have 2 ways of doing that. Most people opt for online. And if you do that, you upload your area email addresses. So only the employees working in that region, upload them to a secure portal that we manage. And then we send out an employee survey to each one of those email addresses. And here's something that's really important. If you're on that list with an email address, you're going to get an email from us, and it's going to have a link to a survey. The link is unique to that email address, which is probably the most important piece of information. It's not a general link. It's unique to that email address. So when that person fills it out and it's complete, that link is now dead. That's a fraud thing. That's to make sure more than one survey isn't being filled out by one person. There's a lot of reasons for that. We can track response rates. We don't know who completed. I mean, we know who completed the surveys, but you won't know that. We spend a lot of time. Our program coordinator will spend a lot of time making sure if you don't have the response rate needed, you'll be hearing from us. And like I said, we hold your hand through that whole process. For a credible data set, 40% of your employees need to complete that survey. 40% of those who are in that Wilmington geography that we just outlined. If you have 25 or more employees. If you have less than 25, that's 15 to 24 employees, you need an 80% response rate. Good news is for the data set to be considered credible, we don't need everybody completing the survey. We've done the statistical measures on that, and it's 40% if you have 25 or more employees, and it's 80% if you have less than 25 employees. If you asked me to explain how we got that, probably couldn't, but we spent a lot of time with statisticians and people who are a whole lot smarter than me to make sure that when we survey, we're getting enough responses for that data set to be credible. So we do the employer survey, and then we do the employee survey. Oh, I forgot to mention that if you don't want to do the online version, we do have a paper version available. There are still a lot of companies across all of the programs we do that said, you know what, I'd just rather do paper surveys. In that case, it costs a little bit extra money. And again, all that pricing is on the website. Depending on the size of your company, we will print paper surveys. We will box them up. We will ship them to you for distribution along with postage paid envelopes. So the employees just fill out a survey, drop it in the mail. They come back to us. We scan it, and everything's good. But I just wanted to make sure you knew that paper surveys were available if you're at all skittish or can't do the online version. Believe it or not, there's still a lot of companies who not all of their employees have email addresses. And that can be in a variety of different industries. And by the way, this is open to all industries. I probably should have said that up front. This is not industry specific. Any kind of business you're in, you're eligible. So the registration deadline is April 10th. The employer survey will be in the field for a couple of weeks starting on April 17th. The employee surveys will happen in the sort of the mid-May time frame for a couple of weeks. And then it takes us about 3 weeks or so to go through all of that data, do all the fraud checks, make sure there's enough responses, and when sometimes we have to disqualify people if they didn't complete the employer survey, if they didn't get the proper response rate from the surveys, you may be disqualified as a result of that. And so just to be aware of that. And then we determine who makes the list. And then we turn that list over to Rob and his team. And then shortly thereafter, we notify your organization whether or not you make the list. And that's pretty much all the information you will get, because the rankings and whatever else Rob decides to do and his team decide to do with the recognition will be up to them. But at that point, we've delivered the list to Wilmington Biz and their team. We've notified you whether or not you made the list. And then there's one big, huge thing that happens after that. And that has to do with your employee data dashboard. So I'm going to show you some pricing here just so you have a feel of what this is worth. So here is some participation fees. You can see the online method cost is $0. And you'll see over here in the second column, we don't survey all employees. If you're a relatively large organization, we do random samples once you hit a certain number. So we'll do up to 300, 400, the max we'll do is 500. If you need paper surveys, here's the additional cost to do that. Down here, we have the reporting cost. So this is what it will cost you to purchase the access to the data dashboard, where you can see the data that we collected from your employees in a variety of different ways. We have benchmarks against the winners versus non-winners. You have all sorts of ways to sort that data, whether it's by department or whether it's by age group. And I'll show you a little bit of that in a minute. But this is the cost to do that, which is relatively inexpensive for what you're going to get to spend. And oh, by the way, this is a discounted rate. So if you want the report, there's an incentive, a 15% discount if you order that report by a certain date. April 10th is the deadline for that. So that giving a little bit of idea of the pricing. Let me show you a little bit the data dashboard, the feedback data dashboard. These are just a couple of screenshots to give you an idea of what you'd be looking at. So there's the online data dashboard. This link will give you an idea. You're going to have response rates, you're going to have total number, your overall response rates, and then you're going to have a selection of a bunch of different reports. Let me see if I do this right here. There's some more feedback results for you just to kind of give you an eye. You can kind of see. I'm going to show you the surveys here in a minute, but I wanted you to see, we're looking at
Peter, just so you know, I don't think when you do the pop-up, I don't think we can see that, but just so everybody knows, he is just on the live website for the best places to work, wilmington.com. So all this information is there.
You can't see what I just pulled up? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just see a white box. I can see now, but I think when you pull the pop-up, it doesn't come through.
Do you see do you see this? The employee feedback survey? Okay, I'm going to open up an example and hopefully that pops up. Did that pop up?
We're back to the employee feedback survey, not the
Okay,
I think it opened on a different screen.
Okay, hang on a minute. I'm going to, let's see here. I am going to go back to here. I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to share my whole, because I only shared the
window and
I only showed the internet. So if we do this, we go back to this. Are we back to the employee feedback survey page?
Yes.
And now if I open this, do you see that?
Yeah. Now we see.
Okay, good. So this is the employee feedback survey. And you'll notice that these are not questions, these are statements. And you'll see up top, here are your options. You can strongly agree, disagree, neutral agree, strongly agree, right? So there's a bunch of different categories. And again, this is all on the website. So you can click here, you can download it, you can, print it out, do whatever you want. It's copyrighted, of course, but it's not anything that we're trying to hide from anybody. But you can see like the core employee experience. We're asking or making statements like I am typically enthusiastic about my work, or I find purpose in my work, or this organization culture allows me to do my best work. Culture questions. Then we ask about their job. You can kind of peruse those questions for a second. Here's a big one. I'm paid fairly for the work I perform, or I believe this organization values me. Then we have questions from communication and workplace culture, relationship with your manager. This is all about, do they really trust who they work for, and their direct report. Training and professional development. There's a handful of questions there. We added a diversity inclusion section about, gives you an idea of what people feel about the culture in terms of its inclusion. We have a leadership section. We have employee benefits section. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on this. I just wanted to give you a brief glance at it. But again, if you go to the website, this is here, and you can spend a little bit more time looking at it. Work-life balance is also one as well. On the employee survey, we have 2 open-ended questions, which don't go into the evaluation, but we gather this information so that when you invest in that access to the data dashboard, you're going to see all the answers to these questions. It's really important to understand that this is an anonymous survey, so there's no identifying tag marks with any of the information you're going to get. And I will go back to oh, by the way, so you have the 2 open-ended questions, one sort of positive, one sort of what we can improve on, and then we have a bunch of demographic questions, and they tell us their gender, job status, all of these different things, and that becomes important. Again, this has nothing to do with the evaluation on whether you're a great place to work or not. This is all about when you go to the data dashboard, you're able to sort. Okay, let me take a look at, full-time versus part-time. Is there any differentiation there? And you can compare and contrast, and you can do heat maps, where you can pull up a big old spreadsheet and you can put in the parameters of green or red. I want to see green if it's more than, an 85% positive response. And by the way, what I mean by positive response, if we go back up to the top to the answers, this is what the employees, this is their choice. These are the only choices they have. If they choose agree or strongly agree, we consider that a positive response. And just as sort of a benchmark, if you're wondering, gosh, how good do you have to be to make this list? Our sort of floor for that is 80%. So if on average, 80% of your employees are agreeing or strongly agreeing with these questions on average, you're good enough to make that list. And that's sort of the benchmark of where we start. And some programs
Peter,
we have, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to bring up, there's a question in the chat related to the dashboard asking, is the data dashboard shared with employers or for the business journal? So obviously it's shared with employers if they purchase the data. It is not shared with the business journal, correct?
Correct. That's a great question, and it goes to the anonymity of what we're doing. The 2 main parts of this, the employer survey, which is pretty much factual information about your organization and your benefits and all of that. That if you're a winner, that information is then given to Wilmington Biz to give them things to look at and write about, and as part of the recognition. The employee part of this is super sensitive. It's opinion, it's employee opinion. So nobody sees that information other than the employer. And what I mean by the employer is that there's only one person we send it to. If you're the primary contact at that employer, you're going to get access. If you buy it, you're going to get access to this. And then who you share it with is up to you. But you're going to have a unique name and password. You can be able to get in and look at all that information. And then you're going to, and then what you do with it is up to you. But that does not go to Wilmington Biz. The only ones who have that information is our company and you guys. And that's
and just really so everybody understands kind of our perspective. Our goal with this is, one, to bring this program to our community, and then we have the recognition pieces at the end. So the only things we get is Peter's group at the end will give us a list of, here are the companies that are eligible to be best places to work. So we don't see any of the data, and obviously we don't publish anything about companies that submitted and were not on the list. They're certainly welcome to interact with Peter's group and get the data and have any questions answered. But our role is to promote this program, have companies sign up, And, we do not have the expertise that Peter's group does to do the evaluation. So he handles all that. He handles all the data. And then in the end, we will, in our September issue of the Business Journal, we will have information about all the companies that were selected as best places to work. And then at the event on October 1st, we'll have a celebration of those companies.
And
Sorry,
that's
Peter, I
really,
just wanted to get that.
no, that's a really good point. I think, again, I'm making it probably sound more complicated than it is, but you register, you go through the 2-part surveys, you find out if you make the list. And if you want to see what people are saying and get benchmarks and all of that, this is what you're gonna get, and you can spend $800 to do it, or $850 or whatever it is, depending on the size of your company. It could be a little bit more if you're a larger company. But this is now up, and I wanted to show you this just because give you an idea. So kind of up at the top, you have the different categories, and you can see what's the percentage agreement in purple, what's the percentage disagreement in yellow, and then you can go down. It goes even further to look at each question. And at the top, you can see, okay, I want to just look at I want these graphs to show me just what different age generations said, millennials versus Gen X, different departments, what did they say? And you can select different filters. And keep in mind, though, to manage that anonymity, if we didn't get at least 5 responses in any one given category, we're not going to report out on it because it's just too easy to determine who might have said what. Like I said, we're really protective about that. As I mentioned, as part of the employee survey, those 2 open-ended questions. So we have these employee verbatims, and this is what you get back. These are all the comments. And again, this is a sample, but this is what it would look like. And all these comments about your employees are what they're saying, and for both of those questions that were asked. So in addition to that, and workforce benchmark comparisons, this might be interesting to look at as well. You have winners versus non-winners, and then your results versus their results, and again, it's all averaged in total numbers. We don't give you specific companies to compare to. That would be bad. So, but these are all totals, so you can compare your results. So you can spend some time looking at that. Again, at any time you can call or communicate with our program coordinator, or any of us at the team will help you with all of this. And when you register to participate, you're going to get a couple of different names, one of which is either going to be Susan Springer or Chris Miller. And if you're interested in looking at how this all works on a customized level, or employees, let's say, hey, you've got an extra 50 employees that work outside the area and you want to survey them as well, we can help you with that. So there's a bunch of different things you can do, but I encourage you to take us up on that. And again, at the end of all of this, you get your results back. You're going to get an invitation to spend, half an hour or an hour with one of our survey pros who's going to go over your results with you. We're not a consulting firm. This is part of it. This isn't something we charge by the hour or charge extra money for. If you're going to invest your $1,000 or whatever it might be into this data dashboard, you're also going to get an hour on the phone with Susan or Chris, and they're going to help you understand what you're looking at. And then you can start to figure out what you want to do to make improvements or be impressed with with what you're looking at. So anyway, I don't know that we need to spend a whole lot more time on that piece of it. But employer survey, employee survey, you get your results, and if you invest in the data dashboard, we deliver the link and the password to you, and then you can start to dive in and perhaps spend a little bit of time with one of our team to understand what you're looking at. I want to shift to the benefits of participating. The benefits of participation really fall into 2 categories. The first is if you make the list, as Rob mentioned earlier. What it does for recruiting and retention and morale is pretty remarkable. I've been doing this and going to best places to work events for 20 some odd years. And it never amazes me that when you get to an event to see just how excited the teams are to be celebrating what they've accomplished, because it's not by accident. It's the result of a pretty intentional mission to make sure that employees feel valued or enjoy going to work, or would recommend you as an employer to a friend. I mean, you spend a lot of time and energy trying to get there. And if you think you're there and you miss it by a little bit, you now have data to be able to look at, okay, where did we fall short? And you start to work on some things. But being really intentional about it is yeah, it's no accident that you make these lists. So, and I like to talk about your brand as an employer. A lot of companies focus on their brand for their products and services and, customer service and all of that. But when you start making that your branding as an employer is one of the pillars there, it really can do remarkable things for all parts of the business, as I'm sure you've all heard about. So that's part one: employer brand, recruiting, retention, all of that. Now, whether or not you make the list, and if you invest in the data, that's a huge benefit, because now people wonder what their employees are thinking and feeling. Now and you can dig into it and really get some valuable information. There are a lot of organizations that once they discover that they can do some employers are spending $10, $15, $20,000 to do employee engagement surveys and find out what's going on. And not only can you do that here for a whole lot less, you're also getting benchmarks with what does a best place to work look like, and then you can compare yourselves and focus on things and really move forward. So a lot of organizations have sort of bailed out on their really expensive surveys, and once you look at the reports and look at the survey, gosh, boy, you're asking a lot of the same things we were spending a boatload of money on, and now that becomes a pretty valuable part of this process, regardless of whether you make the list or not. So our goal here today was to kind of give you a little bit of information about what it means to participate, what the benefits are. Even if you don't make the list, I think the benefits if you make the list are pretty obvious, but if you don't make the list, there's definitely some gold in the hills there that could be super valuable to you guys. So I think that was pretty much all I had. Just kind of reviewing my notes here. Well, list determination happens in June. So that's when notifications would go out. So employer survey in April, employee survey mid-May, list determination in June, and notifications. And the data dashboard would likely be ready for your organization in July. So there isn't a whole ton of time between when you survey and when you actually get your results, which is what we aim for. So again, April 10th registration deadline. Doesn't take long to register. And we're really excited to create this new recognition in the area. And I'm actually looking forward to being there on October 1 to participate in the conference and also help you celebrate if you make that list. So with that, I'll stop sharing here and I will turn it back over to Rob, or had any questions.
Yeah, we got a couple of questions. So first one's for me. Do you plan for awards and recognition to be grouped number of employees or by business sector? So very good question. So we talked with Peter about that when we were researching which company to go with for this program. And his recommendation was particularly for the first year not to do that, because we don't know at this point how many companies are going to be eligible to be best places to work. It is just purely determined based on the survey responses from the company and employees. So we may have 4 companies that are being recognized, or we may have 40 companies that are being recognized. So his recommendation was don't, especially in year one, create, small, medium, large recognitions or things like that. We'll see once we have the list, if it's divided in a certain way. But our plan at this point is not to do that, particularly for the first year. And then the second question is for you, Peter. Do your benchmarks have business sector separation?
Not typically, no. Just because typically in a program there aren't enough businesses in any one given sector to make any kind of a benchmark be credible. So let's say you're in the banking industry and you have maybe 4 other banks that are participating as well. That's just not enough to create benchmarks. That being said, we do a lot of industry-based programs that are national in scope. Best places to work in healthcare, best auto dealers to work for, pensions, best places to work in money management. We do a bunch. So if you're in an industry where perhaps we do a national program, we may be able to provide some insight into some of those industry benchmarks.
If anybody else has questions, please put them in the chat. I'll just put my email address in the chat, and Jamie, our events director, if you can put yours in as well, if you have any questions you want to send to us afterwards. But we really appreciate your interest in this program. Again, the website is very comprehensive. I think everything Peter showed was from or on the live website. So feel free to look at that. And again, just to emphasize, the deadline just to enter, to make sure you're a part of this, is April 10th. You just have to fill out the form online. Again, there's no cost. The only cost that comes in is if you want your data dashboard, and you can see the pricing for that. And if you want paper forms instead of completing things online. So again,
I
don't
also,
hesitate to send,
I also put Jamise. Jamise is the program coordinator for this program on our team. She's the one who's going to be kind of holding your hand and managing that process, and can answer any of the research related questions, or hey, where can I do this, or hey, I submitted my registration, did you get it? Any kind of question like that. Jamise is our day-to-day person on that, and I've put her her email in there as well.
Great. Well, thank you again for everyone who took the time to participate, and don't hesitate to send us any questions, and hope you're a part of helping us get this off the ground in Wilmington.
Yeah. Hope to see you all.
Again.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay,
Peter.
guys. Thanks, Rob. Bye-bye.